Hello, I'm Alan Kestner, and I live in Oxford, and I produce my art there. But my father was born in Hamburg and grew up here until he was in his teens, and I have managed to get an exhibition here in Blankenese, just a suburb of Hamburg, and so come back to where my family came from. I have cousins here who helped find the gallery. They knew of Bernd and Ingeborg, so I came here and worked with them. And I had to bring all my work across from Oxford, and it worked very well. It was a difficult journey, but now when we got here, the exhibition is such a beautiful space, and I think they've done a wonderful job in setting up my exhibition. Now, when I was a little boy, my favourite activity was making things. We had each week, my mother would have delivered the groceries, the green groceries, the vegetables and the fruit in an orange box, and it was a wooden box with planks along the side and wooden end pieces, and I would take the nails out and I would fix the boxes together, and I made all sorts of things. I made the cricket bats which we played in the street outside, and I made swords and guns for our little gang to play. I made tree houses, and I particularly made boats. I always loved making things, but it was mainly out of wood, and I did that for a long, long time. So that was the start of my creativity. When I was at school, if you were good at academic subjects, like English, history, or science, which I was good at science, they said, you must study that, and the art would take second place. So I didn't do an O-level in art until I was in the sixth form, and when I then went to university, I studied physics for 1 year, but I didn't get very far and decided to change, and then I went into art, which was always my first love. I went to Newcastle University and studied art there for 4 years. I have many, many ideas, and I have an idea in my head when I start, but it goes through a series of stages whereby the ideas from my imagination come through, and that is very important. But a very important proviso, and that is that there's an awful lot of hard work as well, which is not inspiring, it's simply work. That to be able to have all your figures drawn properly, have the light going properly, you need technical knowledge, and you need to research and find out, and that can be it can be hard and it can be time consuming, but the inspiration comes at the beginning and it comes right at the end. At the end, when everything's working together, you get excited again and you think, right, this really is coming into a finished picture. Great, I'm happy with it. But there's a big chunk of time, maybe six or 8 weeks, where you just have to slog each day working at your picture. When I begin my drawing, I have a general idea of the direction I want to go, but the specifics are determined as I go along. So with this drawing, I started with a series of blocks, and in each of these blocks
there was going to be a figure, and he would change from one block to the next. There would be a conductor, and you would see his hands move from one position to another, so you would have an idea of how the music was traveling through. But it's a journey in which you don't know where the destination is. You start off and you just say, I'll turn left and I'll turn right, I'll go this way, I'll go that way, but you don't know exactly. So then, having drawn the blocks, I need a misty, a background of abstract shapes and marks, then which will help me look into the picture and see now what will be the next elements which will go in there. So now, gradually I increase the marks and I shade in a little bit, and I begin to see some figures. I can see some little heads and faces down here, and all sorts of things which I look into, and they begin to appear like figures. And then I use both a rubber, which takes away some of the marks, it gives you an idea of light, and add more shadow into the distance. So the faces become clearer. I have some of the conductor, his images begin to appear here in the blocks, and we begin to see some characters here who might become part of the story. There's very early on, some of these ones then become characters in the final piece, others don't. But it's just the initial shape and so on which determine what will happen. So this now is the finished picture, which has many of the ideas which I showed in the initial drawing, but now the characters who were so indistinct at the beginning now become clearer and clearer. This is the way I work. I never think of the figures and just put them in unless they are very minor characters. They may be some animal or some plant which I need to put in. So for instance, I have here some fruit. There's bananas, grapes and some lemons coming from this dancer. So I would put those in directly. They are not important in the imagination, they're just there to show, right, this is fruit, this is the fruits of the world, and coming from this dancer. But the other characters, it's very, very important that they don't come from visual things which you see outside, but they come from deep inside your mind. So you need to be very careful in the way that you present these. You cannot just change things in a way which doesn't agree with your subconscious. So here we have a series of characters who are time-lapse in that they've got the shapes around their head to show that they're maybe moving. And this character here, there's a dove moving from his hands, traveling up the picture, and you see the movement of the wings as it travels upwards. So it gives an idea that this is dynamic. It's something which is happening in time. The figure of the composer, his arms move as his hands would do when he's conducting his choir, but he also, we show him at different stages as his hands are moving, and his body is simplified and moves. Now the original drawing of the blocks becomes more important because the blocks now become transparent and they show his orientation in space. So we know that as we move from one block to the next, we've moved a little piece in time forward. So it goes up the picture, across here, down to the bottom here, and again we can see that this, as it moves through here, changes with time. And now as it moved round, the body seemed to remind me of a spotlight. The shape of it reminded me of a spotlight, so I made it the light shining down onto these figures here. And it's done very simply by just using a rubber and cutting away any grey in this area where the light is, and bringing the centre much paler, and then fading out, and then giving you the outline there. And then of course I have several other figures behind him, so we can then repeat that, repeat and repeat. So that makes a central focus for the viewer to say yes, because they would be used to, if they go to a play, of course there's a spotlight, and then it brings the light. We know exactly how the light must go, shining down from here, gives the idea of where the shadows should be. The card players, we can get the light coming from the right direction, and so on. Then the vignettes of the other small scenes also must move with time. So what was originally just one player then becomes a series of 4 of them there playing the flute. And we, again, a device which I often use is to cut away as well as build up. So with my rubber, I rub away as if there was mist and cloud here, and it just makes the image more, it fits more into the imagination, because you can't see everything. It's as if you looked in a misty atmosphere, and there you just get a hint of what this person is. So you're not quite sure, why does he have this strange shape on his hat, on his head, and what instrument is he actually playing? And it's not very, it's a bit indistinct. The figure up here, which was more clearly something like a bison, now becomes a strange head with his horns now move with time, and you see he's just an enigmatic smile. There's not the same, he's lost the detail there, because this is the important part, not the rest of his body. The dancer here, who was the first image which was here at this point, now is accompanied by a series of other people. They're having a party and they're all dancing. He is there, maybe he's part of the cabaret, and the largesse which the figures have is shown with his fruit coming here. The Jessie Norman figure, now she's becoming much more distinct. She's looking more like an African American with slightly curly hair, and then her mouth is opening from one picture to the next, and then out comes the music, which is just drawn with shapes, because we're using abstract as well as real elements. Then over on this side here, we have some of the minor characters. It's not, in a way, it's not explained why these particular people are here. They just seem to appear from the mistiness of the original first drawings. So we have a lady here in supplication, looking up to the sky. We have some card players. We have a group of people sitting out in a garden with some trees in the background. And here we have, again, a little scene where you have a European lady and an African lady who are speaking together. They may be arguing, but the European lady, she appears down here with her husband, and he is just thinking of wine, and he's got a little wine bottle. So they're all the sorts of images which might come in with, if you're dreaming, they don't have a clear logic, they're just things which have come from your everyday experience or from your past, and they just enter your mind, and these add to the story. But each of them is done in the same way, where there's a time lapse that they're repeated to fit in with the theme of the drawing. And so as we move up here, we have, I think of this one as rather like Sherlock Holmes. He has a Sherlock Holmes hat, and he's got his magnifying glass to look for clues, and his little notebook to write them down. Here we have the witches, maybe like from Macbeth, Shakespeare's Macbeth. And here we have some things to do with the pandemic, which of course in 2020 was very apposite. There's a little mouse who's in bed there, a nurse behind him, and somebody here who's obviously ill. And with that theme, this then moved up the horsemen, which were already there. I added these ones, which are the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. These dancers, which were there quite early on, but again they are repeated to give the idea of time. So gradually this went through, all of these elements fitted together, and hopefully make a final composition which holds all those elements together. Okay. Look, just look here. Yeah, so on the back of my more recent drawings and paintings, I write, when I've finished the picture, I write the ideas and so on which I had, just so that they're so complicated, and it gives you some idea of what I was trying to do and what the meaning was. Of course, I mean, I always say it's up to the viewer to decide that, but this gives some idea of the background of the picture and what I was aiming to do. And it has usually the start date and the end, and I always put, anyway, as always, I hope you enjoy it and don't find it too strange. So, a little message to the world for the future.